welcome back. We're in our fourth section of our Windows 8.1 user interface. And Brent, we were talking about changes to the start menu, and kind of a lot of people got upset about that. What was that about?
Well, people don't like change. I mean, back in when there was the launch of Windows 95, there was a lot of people who were upset about the change from Windows for Workgroups to Windows 95. So It's only natural that when you have an experience that's the same essentially for 17 years, when you flip the switch and do something different, people are going to have a hard time with it. Yeah, they're going to notice, right? They're going to notice.
So in the past, Windows 8 has by default booted into this modern UI view. But you pointed out that they can always get back to their desktop by hitting that desktop button. In 8.1, you can actually now boot directly to the desktop. But I don't even want to tell people that, because if they do, they're just going to use that by default, and they're going to miss out on that incredible experience.
And that's something that's important to talk about, because I hear all the time, why can't Microsoft just add a classic mode? Why can't you flip a switch and you have it like it was, and we forget all this touch nonsense, and we'll go back to whatever? But if you look at things in terms of the broad scheme of time, if you look back and think about Windows 95 having a classic mode to Windows for Workgroups, it seems silly. It seems ridiculous.
Right.
Now, eventually, that's going to be the feeling with regard to Windows 8. It's like, we're in a new environment where touch is an everyday part of the computing experience. Previous versions of Windows didn't really cater to that, and this is a great example.
And I know you know this, Brett and I have been doing this for a really long time, from the early days, even Windows 3.0. Every single time Microsoft came up with a new operating system, people got upset about something, right?
Sure.
Because it was different, because it was, a change from what they were used to. I laugh because I look at Windows 3.0 when it first came out, and the calculator took up like 90% of the screen, and they had those crazy bars that were drawn. Some of you know what I'm talking about. So we resist, but eventually we learn to accept it, and then we actually appreciate it, and I think they're going to feel the same way about the
yeah, I mean, let's put this in perspective, okay? So Windows 8 is not the first touch operating system for Microsoft. Microsoft's Windows operating system has supported touch since 2002. Windows XP supported it. Windows Vista supported it. Windows 7 supported it. Nothing ever happened because it wasn't a designed for touch interface.
Right.
Now Windows 8 comes out a year ago, and look at all the touch devices.
And now we're seeing just peripheral? I just made that up.
It's
proliferation. Yes.
Proliferation.
Proliferation.
Good Scrabble word.
Thank you. Of all these devices, that support touch and that are out there, and will not be able to fully utilize it unless Microsoft considered some new designs. Now, one of the things that came up, people argue about the start button, but I always, maybe jokingly, maybe obnoxiously, you decide, but I always say, hey, look, the button's back, right?
In 8.1, the button is back.
And watch what happens when I push this. Microsoft listened to you. You wanted the button back. They gave you the button back. Look what happens when I push it. I go right back to the metro screen.
It is a bit of a head fake, I'll admit. It is.
But it isn't, because there's more to it than that, right? Because if I go back to the desktop, I can actually hover over this, and you notice I got my finger on it when I let up. It's the same as if I was right mouse clicking. And what do I see here?
Well, you want to be careful with who you show that to, because there's a lot of under-the-hood features that you might not want the typical user getting into. I know I would not want to show my mom that feature. But that said,
but only power users watch our show.
That's good.
And your mom, actually.
Well,
I think about it. But
well, it is my
mom.
But
don't do what you're about to see.
Okay, so you look at that, and there's all of the under-the-hood features that people come to expect, and not only they're actually far easier to get to using that little touch than they ever were in Windows 7.
Right.
I mean, look at all the stuff that you can get to.
And what was there in that pop-up window, and I always bring this up, right? This is about the size of what that Windows 7, what you're seeing up here, it's about the size of what that Windows 7 previous versions was.
Start button, yeah.
Teeny little screen, and I'm trying to execute programs and hit upon those, and, I'm wearing glasses for a reason. It's sometimes hard. That's why I like the new UI, is they're bigger, they're colorful, they're easier to hit. I don't make those same mistakes.
Correct.
But everything I had before, the control panel and the device manager, all that stuff that I got used to is here. And again, I can either do it with a right mouse click or with a touch. I can click and hover over it. And I think we even have a key command here.
Windows key X.
Thank you. I was
Yep.
hovering over it. It does the same thing. It pops it right up. So in the previous session, by the way, if you haven't seen the previous sessions, please go back and watch sessions 1 through 3. We describe a lot more of this.
Yep.
But anyway, the point is, Microsoft didn't just take that start button away and then just put back one. They added a lot of this functionality back in.
They did. They added the functionality. They basically and notably on, I don't know if you can see at the bottom of that menu. You do have your glasses on, but at the bottom of the menu, we've now got here this option to actually shut down or sign off, which wasn't there in 8.0.
Right.
So
a lot of people didn't like having to go to the chimes, then go to the power, then go to the shut off. It's now right there. It's
yes, people would seem to much more prefer going to the start button to shut down, which I never understood. But
habits are habits, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so all the power's there. I've got my best of my start screen. And if I want to, and just so we're clear too, on previous versions of Windows, when I popped up that start screen, what did I see? I saw my programs, I saw my search bar was in there, I saw some documents, I saw some, and when I go into the modern UI, what is it I see? The same thing. I see my programs. I can put my documents. I got all my different fields. Everything I had before is in there now, but I think it's more colorful. I've got my live tiles, all the things we
and
kind of already
search
talked
is
about.
built right in, isn't it?
I love search in the new interface.
Yeah, absolutely.
If we want to search in the new interface, before, even with 8.0, it was great search, but it was kind of a little one-off hitch move you had to do. With this one, I can type anything. Give me something that we want to pull up. That would be interesting.
Well, I'm
still thinking about the cookies from the last...
cookie, I mean, if you wanted to show an app, which I know isn't pinned on here, you could just do calculator.
Calculator, C-A-L-C. And you notice as I'm typing, a couple things are happening here. One is, you see, I'm going to put my finger here just so you can see. See this little line? It's kind of hard to see. But what that line is showing me, everything above the line is local to my computer. Yep. Everything below the line is a search out, like on the internet or out on my different resources. So I can see, sure enough, it found a calculator. Now I have two calculators here. One's an app and one's an application.
That's correct.
And if you want to know the difference, you need to go back and watch our previous deals.
Exactly.
We describe that, or read our blog, or listen to our podcast, because we talk about that. But so here I can launch right into it. I'll just launch the app right here. There's my calculator app, which is kind of cool. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need one of these.
Wait. What is that?
Converter.
That's pretty cool. I actually had not seen. Oh, look at that. We could do temperature. We could do.
So
I'm sorry.
I like it. So 32 degrees.
Oh, you hit copy. Hang on.
Oh.
So if we go in here.
32 is 89. Oh, Celsius is 89.6.
Yeah, so we got Celsius on top.
Very cool.
Good to know.
Anyway, it does all the conversion for me. So I can launch that right from here. The other thing I could do is I was showing some people the other day, and I was asking them, tell me a famous author or musical group or what. We'll just search for something. Sure. And they said The Doors, right? Jim Morrison and The Doors. So I started to type in The Doors. I have not cached this on this machine, by the way. See how fast it came up? I haven't finished writing it, but it's got The Doors songs, The Doors to Hell, The Door and Window Store.
The Door Store.
The Door Store. We did this earlier. We were pulling up Lowe's and Home Depot things. But here's the key. If I did this in previous versions of Windows, what would I get? I'd get pages upon pages, literally 2,000 pages of results that I have to go through to try and figure out. I mean, The Doors as in Jim Morrison, not as Storm Door or Window Door.
And you wouldn't be doing that from a typical search on your desktop.
Right.
You would have to
go to Internet Explorer or whatever
go
my
to a search
of
provider.
choice.
Yeah.
But here, instantly, it's already cataloged these, so I don't have to waste time looking at the Doors that I don't want. So I want Doors songs. I click, it's going out and running a search, and here we go. There's Jim Morrison. There's the top
got a selection
songs.
of songs you can listen to.
Absolutely. Here's a webinar or videos. Here's the Wikipedia entry. On and on and on and on. Here's related searches to the Doors, knowing that it's the Doors, the musical group, not the. So I don't waste my time trying to skim through 200,000 pages of crap.
Yeah.
I get right into the group that I want. I get the information I need, and I'm right back out. And I love that. To me, that is the most important feature of the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Search is incredibly robust and powerful. But the other thing we talked, and we did start on the start button, so I'm going to pull us back there.
Sure.
as we look at, and this is something that I find interesting, the start button for a lot of people is almost like a whoopee. Okay, it's a security blanket. Now you've
I have
taken
no idea where you're going with this analogy, but okay.
okay, but what we found honestly, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, is that most people, even with that start button there, they would find the apps that they would use for work. They would pin it to the bar that you see down here, and they would go to that for 90% of their work stuff. Typically, they'd hit the start button if they wanted to go somewhere else. If they were on a break and they wanted to search the web or whatever, then they use the start button. The rest of the time, it would be these pinned apps. And you can absolutely pin apps to that start bar just as you always have in previous versions of Windows. So for those applications which you work from your desktop, nothing really has changed. You can actually set that up and create that environment very, very similarly.
Can we show that? I'll actually see if I can do that here. Let me go back to the desktop. Let's take Access, for example. Access is an application. Again, if you want to know the difference between app and application, check out the previous versions of this session. But I can click on Access, because I haven't done anything with this. And if I look down at the bottom, I now have unpinned from Start. That's the Start screen I'm looking at. But right next to it, I have Pin to Taskbar.
Which is what we want to do.
Just to make sure everyone sees, before we do anything, let me bow out here. It is not currently shown anywhere on the bottom here. I don't have Access anywhere listed.
No.
So there's no smoke and mirrors going on. I go back to Access. I'm going to say Pin to Taskbar.
Yeah.
I think I hit it. And when I go back to the desktop, lo and behold, what do I see right there at the back? Access.
Yep.
So you can pin to your Start menu. You can pin to your taskbar, just like you always have. It gives you both options.
Absolutely.
Which is very cool.
And that's the thing about Windows, that I know people say, well, this is changed, it's different, but you have so many different ways to accomplish what you're trying to do.
Right.
And that's one of the great things about this operating system, is you have the flexibility to do that in a way that makes sense to you. There will be a learning curve, but ultimately, once you figure out your way to do it, it will be your way.
Okay. So anything else we need to cover before we wrap this module and go to our final one?
I think we're good.
Let's wrap it up then. So people got upset that the Start bar wasn't there. Well, the Start bar is back. It's more powerful than ever.
Yeah.
What you have in the new modern UI is exactly what you had in the old Start button. They're the same features and same functionalities. They're just cleaner.
It's like a pre-pressed Start menu.
So Microsoft pushed the button for you, basically, is what we say.
Basically.
And so you have that power, you have the customization, you have everything else. We looked at how you can pin an app to the Start menu, and you can pin an application to the Start bar, like we just did in Access. Very, very powerful features that, again, most people don't realize and appreciate.
I agree.
All right. So what are we going to talk about in our final section?
Maybe a surprise.
Okay. Come right back. Check out the surprise in our final section.